Well, thank you for everybody for coming. We did a test run of this half retreat in June, and people gave us a thumbs up and said, let's do it again. So we're going to do it every month. Once a month, we're going to do them throughout the school year. And with Syra and with Andrea, we kind of were thinking, okay, what do we want to do this year? And we decided that we're going to talk about discipleship all year long. There's a book called The Way of the Disciple that we're pretty much going to plagiarize the book. We're no longer plagiarizing because we're quoting him. I mentioned him. By this guy called Erasmo. And we're going to just essentially just take little passages throughout the year and just pray, contemplate who Jesus is. And as we contemplate who Jesus is, we're going to grow into discipleship now. So just maybe quickly before we dive into today's passage, just a tiny brief intro to what discipleship is. I know probably a lot of you have heard the word discipleship. It's like one of those buzzwords in the church. Maybe not all of you have heard it. But I think it's one of those buzzwords that's so used that sometimes it's good to remember what is the essence of what discipleship is, no? And it's essentially to follow Jesus. And I think if most of you are here, it's probably because at some point in your life you've kind of said, yeah, I'm down to follow Jesus. I'll follow Jesus. That sounds like a good idea. But we have to remember that discipleship always has this prerequisite that we have to abandon the old, and allow for a new to come in. To desire the new, to desire something new. St. Paul says to let go, to be undressed of the old man, and to be dressed in the new man, which is baptism. In baptism, that happens. When we say yes to the Lord, that happens. But it's something that we have to continue to do every day. As soon as you start thinking, yeah, I follow Jesus, I'm good, I got this. No. We have to constantly remember to abandon and constantly desire the new, constantly be revested with the new. And so what are we being created new into, no? When Jesus calls his first disciples around him, in Mark it says, Jesus went up into the hills, he called to himself those that he desired, and they came to him. And then he appointed 12 to be with him, and then he sent them out to preach and have authority to cast demons. And so we see here there's 5 things that a disciple lives in that literally 2 sentences. Mark gives an outline of what discipleship is, no? One is that there's a solitude with Jesus. He pulls them into the hills, alone with him. 2, there's a freedom in Jesus' calling. He chooses certain people and he calls them. 3, there's a response. They have to say, yes, I'm in, I'll go with you. And they go. 4th, there's a shared life, companionship, friendship with Jesus. And then finally, 5th, there's going out, spreading what Jesus is doing, healing, casting demons. But if you look at those 5, the first 4 is not doing much. The 5th one is doing a lot. But the first 4 are an attitude of being with Jesus, a certain active receptivity, being constantly with Jesus. And so very often we think, okay, we got to go on mission, we got to do all these things, and this is true, but we got to remember that the core of discipleship is to first be with Jesus. And so a lot, as we spend time with Jesus and we spend time with Jesus, we start to become transformed into Jesus. Jesus, who is, remember, this is crazy, guys, but in Jesus is the union of God and man together. And we are called to be like Jesus. We are called to unify the divine and the humanity into one. Jesus is like that, and you guys are called to be like that too. Me too. So hopefully, throughout all these months as we're praying and we contemplate who Jesus is, we slowly let go of our old man, and we can slowly start being dressed in this Jesus, the God-man, the man God. Okay, so let's dive into the passage. I think in your booklet, I think on the first page, the passage that we're going to be praying together today is there. It's from the Gospel of Matthew, which I did not plan for today to be the feast of St. Matthew. So, coincidence, this is beautiful. So it says the following. At that time, Jesus declared, I thank you, Father, Lord of heaven and earth, that you have hidden these things from the wise and understanding, and revealed them to the infants. Yes, Father, for such is your gracious will. All things have been delivered to me by my Father, and no one knows the Son except the Father, and no one knows the Father except the Son, and anyone to whom the Son chooses to reveal him. Come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. So it's kind of crazy. Maybe some of you guys have heard about this, but people say that like John is the most theological gospel and like Matthew is like very structured and kind of like not theological. I mean, anybody who says that, you give them this passage and you're like, you're wrong. Like, this is a diamond. This is a gem. This is so intense, it competes with John. Like, literally, Matthew and John, they're like arm wrestling. Like, who's the most theological? And it's really beautiful. And so what I want to do is point out a couple things, and then we'll go pray, and then we'll come back together and we'll share. So first little element is Jesus declares, it says, no? And the Greek there is actually, declares a poor translation, because the Greek actually is more of an answer, a word to say to answer, to respond. So it's more like at that time, Jesus responded, I thank you. And why is that important? Because we're witnessing a dialogue between Jesus and his Father. Jesus is responding to his Father. It's like Jesus has heard the Father say something, and now Jesus is answering, you know? Guys, like, we're before sacred ground. This is like Moses in front of the sacred, in front of the burning bush. Like, the Father and the Son are chit-chatting. They're dialoguing. They're sharing their thoughts and feelings with each other. And we get to hear it. These guys got to witness it. They got to witness Jesus and his dad talking, you know? So let's listen to this. And it's beautiful because we see that Jesus is actually constantly listening to his Father, constantly listening and constantly responding. They're constantly present to each other. And now it seems so random that suddenly it's out loud. It's almost as if Jesus like is internally conversing with his Father, and then suddenly he decides to do it out loud. He like hits the unmute button, and now we get to hear what's happening. And I think it's on purpose. I don't think Jesus is like, oops, now I'm going to start talking out loud. My guess is probably on purpose because he wants us to hear this. He wants us to draw us in. He wants us to hear what's happening. So maybe today in your prayer, something very simple you can do is listen. Listen to the conversation that the Father and the Son are having. What are they saying? What are they talking about? What do they say about you? What are they excited about? What are they maybe pained at? But what are they talking about? You're allowed to listen. So listen to that. Maybe pay attention to that. So I think on top of trying to draw us into this conversation and to contemplate this conversation, I think Jesus is also trying to show us who the Father is, and he's trying to show us who he is, who the Son is. No, I mean, he says it there. He says, no one knows the Father except the Son, and no one knows the Son except the Father. He's pretty much saying, like, guys, you want to know the Father? You got to get to know me. You want to know me? You got to get to know my Father. And the word know is really interesting in biblical language, because the word to know is very intimate. You know, it's when we say to know someone biblically, we're talking about the intimate relationship that two spouses have. You know, is to know someone. And so when Jesus is saying, I know the Father and the Father knows me, They are saying that they know each other so much that they're one. They become one. So let's get to know the Father, let's get to know the Son in that way, becoming one with them, being pulled into them. And so if we look at this passage, then Jesus reveals a couple things of who he is. First thing we already said, he's constantly in dialogue with the Father. He's constantly responding. He's constantly talking, connecting with his Father, sharing with his Father. A second thing is he says, yes, Father. Verse 26, it seems so weird, that phrase, Yes, Father. Yes, what? It doesn't matter. Jesus' attitude before the Father is always yes. Have you guys seen that movie where the guy says yes to everything? What is it called?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. There we go. Jesus is before the Father is the ultimate yes man. He's constantly, yes, Father, yes, Father, yes, yes, yes. So the Son is always saying yes and thanking. A third thing is the Son is always paying attention to what the Father is doing around him. This whole passage is right after, he literally just cursed a bunch of cities and being like, this city is going down, this city is going down, and just pointed out the Pharisees and be like, guys, you need to chill out. So, and in the midst of all this, you have this response. So Jesus is always looking around in his world around him, and he sees the work of his Father. Even in confusing moments, he sees the work of his Father. He's paying attention. And then a fourth thing is a childlikeness. He says, nothing is revealed except to the Son. And then right before he says, thank you, Father, because you have not revealed this to the wise ones, but you have revealed this to the infants. So there's a parallel though, revealing to the infants and revealing to the Son. So the Son is an infant. And the word infant there in Greek, I just mentioned the Greek because I know there's Greek scholars here, so for you guys to know. Nepois, I think I'm pronouncing it right. Am I pronouncing it right? Right? It sounds right. It means not, ne is not, and pois means speaking. So someone who's not speaking. A simpleton, a Catherine. She can't speak yet, She's simple. She's a simple person still, simple-minded almost. Not in an insulting way, but in a beautiful way, The way I was interpreting it is like a single variable person who only has in their mind room for one variable. And who's that variable? The Father. It's also someone, a simpleton, a Catherine, is someone who constantly depends. I mean, you look at her, she's on her mother's chest, she can't move, she can't do anything, she really depends fully on her mother, And so a child is constantly dependent, not autonomous, The child is never saying, yeah, I got this figured out, Dad, thank you very much, see you later. That sounds like the prodigal son when he leaves. I got this, thanks. The real child is dependent, needy. So Jesus is showing who his Father is, and Jesus is showing who he is, the Son. And then we move into the second half, and then it gets stunning. If the first part wasn't beautiful enough, the second part is even more beautiful, because not only is he trying to show us something, and we get a feeling that when he's showing, he's trying to draw us in. Now he's very explicitly saying, I want you in this. Come to me. This thing that I'm trying to show you by hitting the unmute button, not only do I want to show you it, I want you in. Come to me, all you who labor and are heavy laden, because I will give you rest. Come to me. Can you feel the power? Can you feel how desperate Jesus is? Come. I want you into this thing that I have with my Father. I want you in. It's my strongest desire. And yet you can also feel the fragile hope, like it's an invitation. It's totally rejected. It's rejectable. We don't have to say yes. We can say no. And so he says, come to me away from something towards something else. And so I just want to point those two things out, and then we'll go pray. So he's inviting away from heavy burdens, from heavy work, from being heavy laden, from being burdened, and he's inviting into rest. So I think the experience of having burdens and working meaninglessly and over again, I think in our spiritual life, well, I won't talk about you guys. I resonate 100% with that. Just being worried about me, worried about others, worried, preoccupied, annoyed, hard-hearted, full of restlessness, full of busy work to kind of try to cover that restlessness. I think we all understand that condition. We all understand that, And Jesus wants to invite us away from that. Remember the dialogue that he has with the Father? It was light, it was easy, it was dependent. And so we see the curse of autonomy. We see how autonomy is actually really a curse. It's heavy, it's burdensome. It's oppressive, It's enslaving. It's exhausting. So I think maybe today in our prayer, another good thing that we can do is ask, what are we weary from? Like deep down, what are we weary from? What are we tired from? What are our heavy burdens? And I think it's a great opportunity to talk to Jesus about them. To let them go in front of Jesus. To let them go at his feet. Because remember, with our dependent mind, we sometimes think, okay, this is my list of burdens, and I will let them go. No, don't do it. Just go to Jesus and bring them to him. Let him be the one who's going to take off those burdens. Let him be the one to do that. So away from burdens and heavy work, and then into rest and into a yoke. Does everybody know what a yoke is?
Well, the oxes.
Exactly. Yeah. It's not the yellow part of the egg. I mean that too, but here he's not talking about that. He's talking about, it's what you put over on oxen. Usually there's two oxes. They'll have this like thing that goes over their neck onto the other one, goes to their chest, and then they can pull. And usually it's used in farming to be able to like cultivate the earth. You pull that. They do all the hard work that way. The image of the yoke is really interesting because it has a lot of things, but I just want to bring up a couple of things. One is it's usually with two. It was usually a pair of oxen. And so when Jesus is saying, take my yoke, he's saying, I'm already in this, come in with me. Like, I'm in this with you. He's not saying, go figure this out. Jesus never does that. He's saying, come to me, come into my yoke, tie yourself to me, and let's move together. Let's work hard together. Don't work hard on your own, that's heavy. Work hard with me. The other thing, again, this togetherness, the word yoke also is the same root as conjugal. For a spousal relationship, a conjugal relationship, the word jogal comes from yoke also. So when Jesus is almost saying, take my yoke, there's almost an invitation to be conjugal with him. To have an intimate relationship with him, to become one with him. And this, guys, is rest. This, guys, is rest. Being with him, becoming one with him, that we almost become him. And so, maybe just today in prayer, again, another thing, contemplate this yoke, Jesus' yoke, the yoke of sonship, and hear him say to you, come to me, become one with me, become me. Let me mold you into me. Isn't that what you really want deep down? And this will set you free from your burdens, and I will give you life. Come to me. So we're going to finish up. I want to put on a song. hopefully you guys would like.
I see you hurting, I know your heart, where you see bruises and cracks and wounds, I see art. You're searching for answers only I can provide. Behold, I stand out here knocking, just invite me inside. Come to me and I'll ease your burdens. Come to me and we'll sit in the shade. This is what you were made for. Don't be afraid, for I am with you, child. Come and rest a while. Come to me. I made you with purpose. You can't scare me away. I am waiting with outstretched arms at the end of each day, waiting in hopes that you would only come to me and I'll ease your worries. Come to me and I'll dry your tears, all your feelings of sorrow. I've borne them for years. Let me love you, child. Come and rest a while. Come to me, I won't force you. Take your time. I'll be waiting to ease your mind. Walk beside me, I'll be your guide. Give me your heart and know, my child, I've given you mine. Come to me and be loved. Come to me and feel peace. Come to me. Come to me.